President Biden has declared a national day of mourning for January 9th, when a state funeral for former President Jimmy Carter will be held in Washington, D.C.
The 39th U.S. president died Sunday at his home in Georgia after spending nearly 2 years in hospice care. He was 100 years old. Elijah Westbrook is here with more on the life of President Jimmy Carter. Elijah.
Mary and Cindy, tributes are pouring in from around the world. Former President Carter was a peacemaker who went on from the White House to have a long-lasting second act. As you mentioned, he lived to be 100 years old and faced several health issues in his later years, but pressed on with a joyful spirit. James Earl Carter Jr., the 39th President of the United States, died peacefully at home in Plains, Georgia, Sunday, surrounded by his family. Carter was the longest-living former president. Outside the Jimmy Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, a growing memorial of flowers and candles for Georgia's native son. In Washington, President Joe Biden remembered a man he called a friend for more than 50 years.
What I find extraordinary about Jimmy Carter, though, is that millions of people all around the world, all over the world, feel they lost a friend as well, even though they never met him. And that's because Jimmy Carter lived a life measured not by words, but by his deeds.
Carter was a peanut farmer turned president, coming from a religious family before marrying his wife Rosalind in 1946. The Carters not only became partners in life, but also in their political and humanitarian endeavors. Carter was elected to the Georgia Senate in 1962, governor in 1971, and president just 5 years later.
This inauguration ceremony marks a new beginning.
As president, Carter created the Departments of Education, Energy, and FEMA. He also helped to return the Panama Canal to Panama, and in 1978 helped establish peace between Egypt and Israel. He was also credited for tackling high inflation and an energy crisis that produced gas shortages, marring his presidency. Then came the Iranian hostage crisis.
If there's one subject that literally never leaves my mind, it's the 53 innocent Americans that have been held so long.
Carter took the bulk of the blame for a botched rescue attempt. The president's popularity dipped, and in 1980, Ronald Reagan easily swept the election. Former Carter White House staffer Randy Lewis spoke with our Derek Waller.
He faced some extraordinary challenges that many presidents haven't faced within certainly a 4-year time frame, and being part of the staff and managing that was quite extraordinary.
For President Carter's second act, he started the Carter Center, promoting human rights and democracy around the world, gaining him a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. Then came Habitat for Humanity. Volunteering into his 90s, Carter helped build more than 4,000 homes, even after a 2015 cancer diagnosis and a fall in 2019. The cancer scare came just months later by another big announcement: he was cancer-free.
I've had an exciting and adventurous and gratifying existence. So I was surprisingly at ease, much more so than my wife was.
Carter remained active in politics well into his 90s, encouraging college students to vote. Just last month, he voted for Kamala Harris while in hospice. He entered hospice in February of 2023, marking his 77th wedding anniversary with Rosalind that summer. Rosalind Carter died in November of that year at the age of 96. To the end, Jimmy Carter led a life of public service that impacted and inspired millions.
I would say, as far as public service is concerned, I was a champion of peace and human rights. I've sought to carve out for myself a productive and, I hope, useful and certainly a gratifying life.
Now, in a proclamation Sunday night, President Biden declared January 9th as a national day of mourning for Carter and ordered flags at federal facilities to be flown at half-staff for 30 days. We're learning memorial services are expected to play out over the next few days, including a state funeral in Washington, D.C., and ceremonies in Georgia. Mary?
Elijah, thank you. All former living presidents are paying tribute to Carter. President-elect Donald Trump said the challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude.
Former President Obama wrote, "President Carter taught all of us what it means to live a life of grace, dignity, justice, and service." Michelle and I send our thoughts and prayers to the Carter family and everyone who loved and learned from this remarkable man. George W. Bush says he was loyal to his family, his community, and his country. President Carter dignified the office, and his efforts to leave behind a better world didn't end with the presidency. And Bill Clinton's statement reads, "Hillary and I mourn the passing of President Jimmy Carter and give thanks for his long, good life. Guided by his faith, President Carter lived to serve others until the very end."
Stay with CBS News New York for the latest on the death of former President Jimmy Carter. For much more on his life and legacy, go to cbsnewyork.com.